3, 2, 1. Tip it.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to another Newsmaker Live broadcast right here on DBS Television with me, Timothy Polion. We go up until 10 o'clock this evening, at which time we'll be playing you the clip that peaked. We are also on Facebook, Newsmaker Live Facebook, and we'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to yet another broadcast. In the aftermath of any poll, there will be victors. And amidst that, we have to bring the various parties together, and also we have to speak with the winners, and that's what we'll be doing this evening on the program in the aftermath of the election of a new executive to run the affairs of the National Youth Council. That election of officers took place last Saturday, and with regard to the outcome, Nias Alfred, 77, Robert Rennie, 32, and Dwight George, 7. Also on the broadcast, apart from the president of the NYC, we have as well the first vice president, and she is on the program this evening. That's Anya Edwin. Following the election of a new executive, the president, Mr. Nias Alfred, well, he spoke to the media, including DBS's Sheffield Gillard, and he pointed that he's looking forward to ensuring that the National Youth Council is restored to its glory days. Let's take in that report which was filed on Monday during the DBS News World.
The new president of the St. Lucia National Youth Council says the new executive is committed to providing access to appropriate, high-quality services to young people in every community so that they are empowered to build bright futures regardless of the background or circumstances.
We ran this election campaign with the aim of developing programming and policies to basically target every single young person in St. Lucia, to engage young persons who necessarily have not been engaged over the past 2 years. That includes young persons who are at risk in the various communities. And I do believe that over the course of the next 2 years, we are going to engage in meaningful discussions with young people from across St. Lucia, and our programming will target every single young person in St. Lucia.
The fresh team, according to Mr. Alfred, will do all it can to advocate on behalf of young people.
The NYC over the past few years has not really lived up to its potential. When we got into office in 2017, the NYC was basically at a point where it had lost a lot of goodwill. So we had to basically rebuild goodwill, and over the last 2 years, we were able to do that successfully. So now that we're at a point where the NYC, the foundation has been built, so it's up to us to basically build on that foundation and ensure that the NYC becomes relevant again to the young people in St. Lucia.
The new executive is as follows: Nias Alfred as president, Anya Edwin as first vice president, second vice president Mr. Eljani Lebon, general secretary Ms. Krishna Senbryce, assistant general secretary Ms. Stacy Lafay, Public Relations Officer Mr. Edison Lane, and Treasurer Ms. Steffi Alfred. They will be the voice of the nation's youth for the next 2 years. For the DBS News World, I am Sheffield Gillard.
Thank you very much, Sheffield, for this report which was filed on Monday evening during the DBS News World. Once again, my guests on this evening's Newsmaker Live program, the newly elected president of the NYC, Mr. Nias Alfred, and the first vice president of the National Youth Council, and that is Anya Edwin. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
In terms of protocol, let's start with the president. We will hear that in the run-up to that poll that it was very heated. The exchanges at certain times got real personal. What is your experience?
The election for us, we ran as a team, as many persons would have known. And for the vision for our team was to ensure that, we ran an election that was fair, we ran an election that was, filled with integrity. And we managed to do that for the most part. But, of course, what a lot of persons remember is the debates, because the debate was extremely heated. And in the aftermath of that, I went on to social media to basically express my disappointment as well as to the course in which the debate took, because I think that the young people of St. Lucia deserved a lot better from that. But like I always say, the characteristics of a true leader are normally born or shown when you realize the mistakes that you made, and you basically put things in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And in the aftermath of that debate, we ensured that the campaign remained clean and that we focused on the solutions to a lot of the issues that young people will be faced with in St. Lucia. And I think that actually we did manage to do that successfully.
What role did you play, if any at all, in ensuring that the debate was heated?
It was a bit disappointing for me that the debate took the route it did, but I understood that human nature took the best of the two candidates who were mostly involved in the debate. I did pull up my president at the time, Mr. Nias Alfred, and during the breaks, we actually said, Nias, this is not what you came here for. You need to stay focused, stay towards the goal, and get back on track. I was in the audience, the live audience during the debate, but I'm happy that Nias refocused his energy, refocused on the plan that we came here today to do, and that in the latter part of the debate, it took a spin.
What lessons do you draw from it, generally speaking, both of you?
Nice. Well, for me, it shows that as young leaders who are responsible for basically the voice of young people in St. Lucia, that we need to be a lot more cognizant of the fact that a lot of the things that we do ultimately affects youth in St. Lucia. If I have to pick out one positive thing out of that team, out of all the heated debates, would be the fact that a lot of persons who did not know about the NYC, because of the whole concept of the teams for the debate, they actually got to know about the NYC and know about the role of the NYC and what the NYC is supposed to do. So moving forward, I do hope that a lot of people who were engaged during the course of the debate and the election actually stay tuned to the NYC and they get a lot more involved in the process.
You think you all were mirroring what normally happens on the national stage in Parliament involving our elected parliamentarians?
I wouldn't say everybody is their own person. I mean, most of the behavior that we saw at the debate reflected quite a bit in terms of what happens at House of Parliament. So there is no escaping from that. But at the end of the day, it's different characters. And what I realized was that the conversation of the debate is what continued, is what grew, what attracted the popularity towards the NYC election, because it was pretty much a quiet election before that. Nomination had to be extended because only 9 people were nominated. And so, I mean, it was a very quiet election until the debate occurred. And I'm happy that, like Naya said, it drew a lot of attention, although it was not the right attention you would have preferred. But at the same time, moving forward, asking persons to let's put the debate and the heated elections behind and let's work together for youth development.
Therefore, Nias, how do you bring the factions together?
In the aftermath of the elections, because that did happen at the Marigo, secondary, like you said, and the candidates for president actually did meet, and we spoke quite a bit, and we said to each other, at the end of the day, the goal remains youth development. Whether or not we win, we lose, at the end of the day, it's youth development, and we need to refocus on that, and we need to ensure that we're able to bring in people, those persons who have would have gone up, would have lost. They still have a part to play in the NYC and in the success of the NYC, because they would not have been nominated if they did not have something to contribute. So right now, the onus is on us who've won the election to ensure that these people are engaged meaningfully over the course of the next 2 years.
I think this is the 16th executive to serve the National Youth Council. Why do you think that over the years it has basically lost its appeal and therefore it has lost its influence in the society?
If you ask me, one of the issues the NYC has been facing is the structure of the NYC, and persons who have not stayed in the NYC to have some sort of continuity or succession plan for the incoming executive has pretty much caused to the structural damages, if you may. In any organization, institutional knowledge is very important, and that contributes to continuity. So for NYC, we've recognized a very high turnover, and I think our former executive, the 15th executive, recorded the least turnover in NYC history. Only one person resigned during the 2 year. Normally, you'd get persons resigning after 2 months, 3 months for personal reasons, or they're not able to take on the load of the NYC. But we have a vision for NYC now. We were there in the last executive, and having understood the structure that exists, what needs to be done, I think we have a vision and a plan to continue the NYC and bring it back to glory days, if you may say. And we just need a set of persons who are committed and who are genuinely interested in youth development to take on that action.
Alfred, what is that vision?
That vision is ensuring that every single young person in St. Lucia is engaged. Over the past few years, and it's not just over the past 2 years, young people in St. Lucia have been really disconnected to the NYC. They have a lot of potential. They're sitting down in communities and they're basically not engaged. So our vision is to ensure that we put together programming and a proper plan to ensure that every single one of them is engaged, from the grassroots level to young people within the schools. That is definitely our vision. And if young people can start to see the relevance of the NYC, they can start getting involved in the NYC activities, and we can basically reach them a lot quicker. Yeah.
With several years of dormancy, don't you think that this will definitely be a very difficult task?
It will be a challenge, and one of the ways in which we hope to do that is by re-strengthening our district youth and sports councils, because the strength of the NYC is in its membership. And if we have strong councils within the communities, it only makes the job of the NYC a lot easier. So definitely strengthening them through programming, ensuring that they have the proper structures in place to ensure that they can actually go into the communities. So definitely that is the first plan for us.
As far as you're concerned, what is the dominant issue? What is the main issue that is impacting young people in St. Lucia right now that would require fervent attention on the part of your executive?
I don't think that any one issue outweighs the others, if you ask me, because crime is very prevalent. We have an education system too that needs a lot of attention. We have a healthcare system that needs immediate attention, if you ask me. So there is so much that needs to be tackled.
But if you were to prioritize, which one would be number one? If you were to prioritize.
If I were to prioritize, I would definitely prioritize education. It's hard for me to say education over health, but I mean, we both have their place. A healthy country, of course, is a well-knowledgeable country, an educated country. But I will comment on the education system in St. Lucia. Our education system in St. Lucia, our education curriculum is archaic. And we've heard a lot of that over the last few years, or probably decades, long before me, because it has been in existence long before me. But nobody is taking on the charge to revamp the education system, to make it more relevant. We have persons or children who are being just sent to secondary schools after common entrance with a very low grade point average. And that should not have been happening, because when you send the children to a secondary school who don't have the aptitude to learn or interested in any academics whatsoever, it makes no sense. It means that they stay at the school for 5 years, not even graduating or graduating without having any qualifications. So we need to restructure our curriculum and make it more relevant, make it more inclusive for persons whose aptitude is more geared towards technical vocational. We need to invest in technical vocational schools like CARE. CARE needs to be something that is much more popular than what it has been. The stigma attached to CARE really needs to be removed totally or eradicated. And CARE needs to be revamped, and it needs to be sold for what it is and not what persons think that it is. It is not a holding center for misbehave or deviant children. It is not just another chance for somebody. It's an alternative pathway to learning, and we need to create more alternative pathways to learn rather than just allowing our children to just go into any school, because that is where they have places for them to fit.
Full disclosure, you have any association, any link with CARE?
Yes, to a certain extent. I work at the SSDF, and I'm coordinating a program called Our Boys Matter. And that program pretty much caters to secondary school boys. In fact, it's in its pilot year. And it caters to secondary school boys who don't have the means to get an education because, of course, they're poor or they're going through indigence. And SSDF is a poverty alleviation organization. So during in that program, we gave our students an opportunity to migrate to CARE to learn a technical vocational school. So I pretty much know about CARE, and I think it is a very good institution.
But it's not to take away from your observation, because I think what you've just said is very valid, and I think it's a very good advertisement for CARE. I'm
We need
very
more of
honest
that,
about
and
this.
I'm hoping
Yeah.
that more persons can advertise CARE, advocate on behalf of CARE moving forward. CARE needs to be known for what it is and not what the persons perceive it to be.
But again, we've been hearing, Nairas, as Anya said, that we've been hearing authorities talking about revamping the education system, looking at the curriculum and so on. What do you think it will take? Do you think it will take the Ministry of Education, it will take young people, it will take employers who are saying that the workforce is just not prepared, people are graduating, not prepared for the job market? What do you think it will take to address this issue once and for all?
It has to be a collaborative effort, because from the NYC perspective, as much as we can say that we want to ensure, and that is definitely a priority for us, but on our own we really cannot do it, because the NYC gets a subvention of $42,000 a year and really cannot do anything. So it has to be a meeting of the minds of the Ministry of Education, the National Youth Council.
But to me, a flood does not start with a deluge. It starts with one drop of water, as the Chinaman says.
Well, true.
But you see, because I think sometimes when you say that it takes a collaborative effort and so on, who starts it? Who gets it going?
Well, that is one of the things that we hope to advocate for, is the reformation of the education system. So if we're speaking on the behalf of the NYC, we are going to say that, we hope to advocate strongly on behalf of the students who, like Anya said, have been suffering over the years. So definitely that is on the priority list for the NYC. We need to ruffle some feathers if we need to ensure that this thing gets addressed, because for too long have we been speaking about the same thing, Tim. Every single year, every single government, every single NYC comes in and they speak about the education system, but you're not seeing any progress. So we definitely need to ensure that that becomes top priority moving forward.
What impact do you think that this will have on young people, revamping the education system? Anya?
It's going to have a great impact on our young people, because then you make available what is relevant, or what is going to cater to their interest and what is going to cater to their needs. And like I was saying earlier, not everybody have an aptitude towards academics. And one thing I think that can be introduced, and like Naya said, it's on our priority list, that we are going to advocate for it, is the introduction of the aptitude test as early as the primary school level. That aptitude test then determines if a child is academically inclined versus a child who is technically inclined. And then, of course, that too, if you look at it as a domino effect, children who are placed in schools where they're where it's academically inclined school, they tend to excel, and likewise students who are placed in technical vocational school, and that of course will cure some social ills, because if you have children that you just place in academically inclined school who have zero interest in academics, then it means that they stay there they're idle pretty much, and they have no interest in going to school. So of course they will take another route, and pretty much where that heads.
But how do you cause the authorities to listen and also to act on your various concerns, Nairas?
It has to come with strong and consistent advocacy, because a lot of the time we find that persons mention it and then there is nothing done to address it, and then they just basically give up. But our advocacy as young people, it needs to be consistent. We need to reach out to the authorities, to the people in the Ministry of Education, and ensure that they can actually hear us. And one of the things in any advocacy plan that is essential is that you cannot just make noise. You need to ensure that you advocate, but you also propose solutions. And that is something that we hope to do, and that is something that we've spent quite a lot of time working on. And we want to ensure that when we get a seat at the table, that we can actually not just say that we need the education system revamped, but you can actually show why or how to go about doing it. And I think that is the key difference.
Young people in St. Lucia, they're normally seen as being relevant in the run-up to a general election. True or false?
True.
Okay. But how do you change that?
Well, one of the things that we had in our action plan, I must say manifesto, our action plan is a youth voter education campaign. It speaks for itself. It's supposed to educate our young people on the importance of voting, in educating them on their civic duty as young people, and pretty much drawing our young people away from just taking, like somebody would say, alcohol and chicken or $500 for a vote. It's more than that. Our votes worth more than that. And we need to be making sound decisions when we elect our politicians or our policymakers or the persons who represent us at the highest level.
Yeah, and for me as well on that topic, we need to come to the point, or the NYC needs to come to a point where our politicians understand the power of young people. Because young people in St. Lucia represent a majority of our population. According to some recent statistics that I read, out of a population of over 180,000, young people make up probably about 101,000 out of that. So that is a huge chunk of our population that I think that enough measures are not being put in place to ensure that young people are adequately represented. So the NYC needs to come to a point where we get persons to understand the power of young people. And if young people can stand together a team, there is nothing that we cannot achieve. And I think that that is something that we need to bring forward into the next election to ensure that, you know, the issues that affect young people are dealt with by each and every person who decides to go up for political office.
And the young people, they considered to be people between the age of 10 and 35. Okay. Now, according to the census of 2010, people who are between the age of 10 and 14, male 8,047, female 8,058. The total is 16,105. Percentage 9.4. People 15 to 19, the percentage is 10.09. 20 to 24, the percentage is 10.11. 25 to 29, the percentage is 8.77. And 30 to 34, the percentage is 7.73. Do you believe that the young people are taking themselves seriously in terms of the influence and the ability to determine which political party is elected into office and which individual is elected as an MP?
I think a lot of the time it has to do with a lot of various reasons where young people are not educated enough on the role or the responsibility that they have as voters. You're not seen enough from the politicians as to what exactly affects them. And I think that it has basically turned off a lot of young people in saying that, you know, why exactly do I vote? Why do I need to vote? Because I'm not seeing year in, year out, nothing is being done for young people. And I think that speaks to a lot of, like you say, young people not knowing about the power that they hold. And I'll keep saying it, that is something that we need to change. We need to ensure that, you know, an organization like the NYC can be so influential that we say that a plan was put in one of the manifestos of a political party, and we don't think that it's in the best interest of young people, and that young people will listen. But it has to come to a point where the NYC, of course, becomes relevant again. And the only way we can do that is by getting on the ground. And like Anya said, we do have something in our action plan geared towards voter education for the next general election, because that would, of course, fall within the tenure of this current NYC executive.
And what is that action plan?
The action plan is the list of solutions that we had to a lot of the issues faced by young people, and a list of programs and basically programs and ideas that we hope to implement during the 2-year period.
What gives you the impression, Anya, that the politicians will listen to what the young people have to say? Other than titillate them, other than tell them what they want to hear, other than make promises to those young people. And in the first place, do you think young people should be voting in the next general election?
Politicians will always be politicians. They will always tell you what you want to hear. In most cases, it's not very easy to distinguish a humanitarian from a politician. What helps is looking at their track record. So I know most persons have said that NYC is a breeding ground for politicians. Yeah, that is the talk of the town. And again, they have evidence.
That was in a weekend. That was in a weekend. The Weekend Voice newspaper, an article by Kingsley Shalman. You say they have evidence to prove it. Continue.
Because you have politicians who have gone through the ranks of NYC. Mm-hmm. So of course that could substitute or as evidence to prove that. I think I don't see an issue, if you ask me. Well, that's my personal reason. I don't see an issue if persons going through the rank of NYC and then later on becoming politicians, because NYC is supposed to serve or supposed to be a leadership organization. If you do well within the NYC, then it means that, okay, persons can trust you in a higher position, a higher role, and which is, of course, elective politics. your question as to whether, sorry, before I go to answer your question, what I think should not happen is when persons push their political agenda through the office of the NYC. Everybody has their right, the democratic right, to be attached to a party, or to be partisan politics. However, it is wrong, it is unethical to push your political or your party's agenda through the office of the National Youth Council. The two should be separated from each other. As to whether young people will take politicians or politicians will take young people seriously, I really don't know, but I don't think they have been challenged enough in the past. Our young people need to start challenging our politicians. We need to start seeing through them and asking them the questions, the burning questions, so we can distinguish who is really for us and who is really there for themselves.
But if we know politicians well enough, they have the gift of the gab.
That's what, yeah.
They speak very well, they're very eloquent, they're convincing.
We have well-speaking young people, we have very eloquent young people as well, and it's just a matter of our young people making a decision to step forward and challenging these politicians for what we deserve.
But how do you do it in a very effective manner? Challenging politicians, holding their feet to the fire.
First and foremost, we need to see what each politician has on the table as it relates to youth development in St. Lucia. Of course, in the lead up to the election, they will be providing us with their manifestos, and we need to look through that and sift through it.
Sometimes they release the manifesto just 1 week before the actual poll.
We need to challenge them to do it a lot sooner, because as a young people in St. Lucia, we should refuse to vote if we don't know what the plans are. And I think an easy way, like, persons have been bashing the idea of the NYC presidential debates, but the issue or the whole purpose of the debate was to actually give young people an opportunity to hear from the people who want to lead them and to actually propose the plans. So why not debates within among our politicians? I know it was asked for the last general elections, and that is something that should be a staple in every single elective politics in any race whatsoever. So the National Youth Council, you can look forward to the National Youth Council requesting for discourse. We don't want to call it debate, but discourse between the people who we want to trust our future with for another 5 years.
What are you looking for in your typical MP?
In my typical MP, I'm looking for one who is empathetic, who knows about the issues affecting young people, and even though they don't have the necessary resources to get the job done, because some of them might be in opposition, but it's effort. As young people, it is effort, because if as a politician, probably you're trying to get things done and you're basically not getting through. But the fact that you're actually in the community, you're meeting with young people, you're trying to find out what their issues are, and actually trying to put measures in place to ensure they're addressed. I think that's what a lot of people want to see.
What do you think of the current crop of politicians?
Yeah. Wow. I really think that our politicians need they need to be cleansed. They need a cleansing. That's the best way I could put it. I mean, we have real politicians who come to Mamagai, our people, year in, year out. Our St. Lucian populace needs to be more alert, more aware of what is being presented to them and the actions of the politicians when they get into office. And we need to stop voting for people based on family inheritance or because this person is my friend, I'm going to be loyal to him. We need to work for people who have our best interests at heart.
Same to you? What do you think about the crop of politicians in St. Lucia?
I think that, of course, like I just said, there is a lot of work to be done. If a young person has interest in becoming a politician, I don't think that there is too much that we can take or we can look up to in our current set of politicians. But I do think that there is adequate time for our politicians to basically show young people that they are capable, or that we should trust them for another term. So I think that there's a lot more work to be done, and hopefully over the course of the next 2 years they can prove us wrong and actually start working in the best interest of the young people. They need to start
addressing the issues that are faced by our people. It's like they come around, everybody campaign, canvass for votes, but when you get elected, it's a different story. And one thing that I think should or can help in terms of politics, institution, and governance, is the fact that we need to separate parliament representatives from cabinet ministers. I don't think every single parliamentary rep qualifies to be a member of cabinet, a minister of cabinet. So if you ask me if it means constitutional reform, not the parliamentarian should be separated, because the parliamentarian should be serving their constituents who rightfully elected them to serve them, and of course that can lend a lot to social development and the development of the country, economic development, and allow cabinet ministers to focus on the portfolios in terms of running the country, governing the country. You'll see a big difference in politics, and you're going to see a massive improvement in our economy.
One of the recommendations made by Anya Edwin. Let's see what will happen. And this recommendation has also been made in the past as well, but it has not been implemented. Examples being set by the adult population worthy of emulation. We'll be discussing that issue in just a moment when we continue the broadcast. You are watching Newsmaker Live. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS Television with my guests. Once again, the president of the NYC is Nairas Alfred, and the first vice president is Anya Edwin. Thank you so much for staying with us. Later at 9:30 this evening, we'll be taking your calls, and of course, at 10 o'clock, we conclude with a clip that peaked. The quality of parenting on the island, because very often young people are being blamed for everything, but also the adult population, they're not being scrutinized in terms of the quality of parenting. What do you think about the quality of parenting on the island, Anya, by observation?
There is so much that has to be done to improve on the quality of parenting, because it's evident through a lot of reports that says our young people are pretty much at the epicenter of crime in St. Lucia, crime and violence. And I have witnessed it. I grew up in the inner city, and I witnessed it firsthand, the quality of parenting. And over the last few days, I was conducting some interviews for the same program I mentioned about earlier. And then one parent in particular, she was she was speaking to her son in a very negative tone, and we kept telling her that this is not the way to go. If you speak positively into the child's life, then the child's self-esteem will be improved. But if the opposite is done, then of course you don't expect the child to progress or do better, because this child feels like he's very undeserving of a chance, he will go nowhere. And she kept hitting at him, lashing at him with a lot of negative words. We have a lot of work to do in terms of parenting. We have a lot of broken family structures in our society that needs to be addressed. But more emphasis needs to be placed on conducting or having programs on intervention to tackle our parenting issues in St. Lucia. And of course, the government needs to take a page from that. The NYC is of course going to address, or in one of our programs has allowance for targeting parenting issues, and pretty much to improve on the quality of parenting that is lacking in our society.
You think that's something that should be taught?
Yes, it should be taught. It should be taught. A lot of things need to be taught and placed into our curriculum. And of course, that is why we're saying that our education system needs to be revamped.
For me, in response to that question, Tim, I will give a bit of experience that happened to me this week, where you know of the viral video that went about where a young man was stabbing another one while he backed to
At Leclerc.
So I did an interview on Monday with one of the media houses in St. Lucia, and one of the questions asked was about that video and about the state of young people and involvement in crime and whatnot. And I basically spoke to the fact that, it should have never gotten to that point, and that young people need alternative pathways in order to basically channel their energy, and that we need to place a lot of attention, not just on the victims, but on the person who perpetrated that crime as well. And on yesterday, I was visited at the NYC office by a young man a gentleman who came in close to tears, basically, and it happened to be the same guy who was being stabbed in the video. He said that he witnessed the interview that I did, and it really touched him. And he basically came into the NYC office to say thank you. Thank you not just for standing up for him, but also standing up for the young person who stabbed him. And, he basically spoke to the fact that he really loves the approach that the NYC has taken in terms of trying to basically help these young people who are victims or are perpetrators of these crimes. And he cried to him at the NYC office, and he said that he really hopes that we continue putting things in place to ensure that our parents are more capable of handling kids, or that our parents are basically have the right skill set to parent properly. And that was something that really struck me, and that is something that moving forward that we need to place particular attention on, because at the end of the day, if somebody is having a parent at home who is constantly telling them that they're worth nothing, that they will amount to nothing in life, I don't know how we expect a young person like that to actually take anything seriously. So we do need to address the root cause of the issue, and I think that in terms of the parenting aspect of it, we need to get parents a lot more involved in the development of their kids, and that is something that I really hope that our NYC will be able to champion over the next 2 years.
I think there's also an issue with single parents. The household where, for example, it's one mom or one dad, and they are wilting under the pressure.
I think that a lot of attention has been placed to single parents over the last few months. And, as we know, there is a direct correlation between single parents and poverty. And that is something that we cannot run away from. But me personally, Tim, I grew up with a single mother, teenage single mother who was unemployed. And I think a lot of the time it has to do with the mindset of the parent. Because growing up with a single mother, it was never easy for me. But then I had a mom who was persistent and was willing to ensure that she left herself behind to ensure that her kids got the opportunities that they required to move up in life. And she got that being taught by a very strong woman as well, in her mother, who always supported her. So I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, our young people need to be exposed from a very early age as to the value of being a parent. If you're putting yourself out there and you want to be a parent, you need to know about what you're getting yourself into and about the impact that you can have just being there for your child. So as much as people may want to blame the single parent for all of these things, I think that there are a lot more positive stories out of that than there are negative.
What about targeting unattached youths? It appears that very often you're targeting the young people who are part of some youth groups, some youth organization. What about people who are not associated with such organizations?
So let me just start by saying that the NYC structure allows for it to serve only club members. And our constitution is 54 years old. It's because it'll be 55 next year. And this is what the constitution allows for. I know a lot of people have targeted NYC for not targeting unattached youth, but we too realize that it's important to serve every single young person in St. Lucia. And that is why in revisiting what happened in NYC the last 2 years, we realized that we need to target every single young person, and our action plan targets every single young person in St. Lucia. We have a program called Opening Doors of Opportunities for program, and that is pretty much going to, we know young people, or what you refer to as unattached young people, they pretty much have a vested interest in sports, or what you call sweat. They go and sweat in the afternoon. So we are going to use a platform where they all congregate, something that they like, to get them together, to get them involved, and then to introduce programs like CVQ certification, parenting, life skills, and every single thing that we can pretty much incorporate into that program that will add or develop the human or the young person holistically. It is important that we place a lot of emphasis on these young people now. It is unfortunate that the club structure in St. Lucia is not as common as it used to be before our days, or probably pretty much in your days, because I would hear persons from your generation saying that they always had something to do. There was always a club that they would have engaged in, and we no longer have a very strong foundation in clubs. And in as much as we think that clubs are very important, I grew up on extracurricular activities. Extracurricular activities made me who I am today. So persons who are not interested in the club structure, we need to make it something that is more relevant or of interest to them. And our Opening Doors of Opportunity program will obviously target people who are unattached and people who don't think that there is a need to join a club structure, but still wants to be represented, still wants to feel some sort of inclusion, still wants to be attached to anything youth development. We have other human and social development programs like an I Am Woman campaign, and that I Am Woman campaign is going to target unattached women, as you may see. It's pretty much going to introduce or advocate for women reproductive and sexual and reproductive health, pretty much simple things like not having access to sanitary napkins, because there are a lot of persons who can't afford these things, and letting women know that they can be empowered despite their circumstances, despite their background, despite where they come from. Every single person has a unique opportunity and a chance to become better.
And to that as well, Tim, in terms of engaging young people who are necessarily or normally unattached, we realize that the Constitution of the NYC also only makes provision for people who are part of clubs to basically be responsible for electing the people who want to lead us. And one of the things that we hope to start off, it might not happen during the next 2 years, but through constitutional reform, we want to ensure that every single young person in St. Lucia who falls within the age bracket has a say in who gets elected to the office of the NYC. And that way, more young people in St. Lucia can actually hold the NYC accountable over the course of the period. So that is definitely something that we hope to champion over the course of the next 2 years, so that every single young person in St. Lucia can have the opportunity to vote for an NYC executive and, of course, be able to hold them accountable.
What do you think of the current crime problem, particularly when young people are at the center of it, either as perpetrators or the victims?
It is really unfortunate that with regards to our crime situation in St. Lucia, that young people are the epicenter. But as the NYC, one of the things that we're looking to do, or one of the approaches that we're willing to take, is an action-centered approach, where we actually go into the through our programming, target every single young person who was unengaged. So through opportunities like the Opening Doors of Opportunities program that Anya spoke about, ensure that young people are engaged meaningfully enough that they turn away from the violence, they turn away from the crime. That every single week in St. Lucia, young people can say that they have something to do. Because as we know, the idle hands is at devil's workshop. So we think that if they're engaged adequately, that will provide it will do wonders in terms of getting them away from the streets and getting them involved in meaningful activity.
But Anya, where will the resources come from to do all that?
We intend to embark on a resource mobilization drive in the NYC because, of course, the $42,000 really cannot cut it for us. And we also intend to engage the government of St. Lucia in a lot of meaningful discussions, because most times, persons would request money, but request money for what? We are coming to you with plans, workable plans, action plans that must be financed for our young people to develop. One of the things that we ran on was, in fact, two things that we ran on that we intend to generate funds from. The first being the St. Lucia National Youth Council Alumni Association. We have had many young men who are now in very remarkable positions. For example, Justice Mario Michel. We do intend to tap into their resources. We know that all of them are looking for the opportunity to give back, but have not been presented with the platform to do so. And we've spoken to a few of them, and they have an interest in joining the Alumni Association. So, of course, that could generate not just monetary, but also capital. Sorry, not just monetary, but human capital. And another big program or project for the NYC is a social enterprise. And that social enterprise is going to do two things. It's going to rebrand the NYC, market the NYC, and make it relevant or inclusive to every single person, not just every young person, but we need every single St. Lucian on board with the NYC becoming relevant again. And it's pretty much something where we're going to sell paraphernalia for a start, and the funds generated from the sales of these paraphernalia will go towards financing our program. And thirdly, we intend to go on a massive drive to apply for grant funding for our programs.
Let's look at the positives. What do you think exists in St. Lucia right now that would give young people hope?
I think right now we have a current crop of young people who are eager, who are curious, set of young people who have a lot of bright ideas, but they just have not been presented with a platform to showcase that. And that is something that, as an NYC, that we hope to tap into, because too much of the time we see young people who want to make a contribution, but they feel that they're not adequately represented, or they don't feel secure enough to go ahead and do that. So when I look at people like Mr. Ryan Augustine Joseph, who was at DBS last week, that actually speaks to the level of brilliance of our young people. And if you're able to tap into that, I think that there is the future is the possibilities.
Well, he got a lot of flack for you because interesting that he's in the studio right now. He represented your campaign, and I remember Rick was saying, because I watched last Thursday's talk program, basically that signals something negative, that if he is not the candidates contesting the presidency of the NYC, he is on representing you as the actual individual who will be participating in that contest. It really and truly, from his perspective, Rick was saying, it does not make any sense at all. And it did work.
Yes, but I want to make a disclaimer there that for that night in particular, I was not feeling very well, because we'd gone on a lot of long nights, leaving the office at 11 p.m., midnight, traveling around. So it was really exhausting, and I was ill that night. But the decision that I made
sound like a
to have him
politician,
was actually, but the decision made to substitute Mr. Joseph, I think it provided a good opportunity to allow the young people in St. Lucia to see the supporting cast. Basically, the people who would be around the NYC to provide ideas, to give their solutions on issues, because at the end of the day, it's not all about us. And the more young persons like Mr. Joseph that we can tap into their brilliance, the better it is for the young people of St. Lucia. So in terms of getting him involved or having him represent, I think that is something that worked quite well, and he did represent what we want to see of the NYC.
Talking about the campaign, getting back to the campaign, what really led to your victory, Anya?
We were action-driven, action-oriented. We made an effort to reach out to as many young people as possible. Like Naya said, we traveled all over the island. I mean, it was a very exhausting election period. I'm still trying to recover from this election. But for us, it was really and truly our action-driven approach towards youth development in St. Lucia.
What did you discover whilst traversing the island? Anything at all? Anything interesting interacting with the young people of the island?
Well, the interesting thing is that most of the issues that we looked forward to targeting is what we were hearing from our young people. So it was not a situation where we just took things out of the sky. They were common issues that need to be addressed, and we were happy that our young people were singing the same song with us.
The issues would include what?
Unavailability of opportunities for persons to thrive, the education system that is flawed. We have a high, and one of the most popular things too that came up was the fact that we have a very high depression rate among our young people. And surprisingly, one of the things that is in our action plan is a mobile mental wellness clinic for our young people. Mobileness in two senses. One, it's going to travel around the island to provide mental wellness services to our young people, and mobile in the sense that it is going to be made available 24/7 for persons to access it. So if at some point, let's say 3 a.m., you're feeling depressed and you have nowhere to turn to, you can revert to the mobile wellness clinic on website. And another situation may be the fact that you are not open enough, you're not brave enough to seek help from somebody. So instead of shying away and resorting to committing suicide, you can refer to that website.
Yeah, and one of the things as well, Tim, is the fact that the young people were just very, for lack of a better word, they were happy with the presence of the candidates on the ground, because too much of the past that you've had candidates for the NYC where you want to vote and you only see them on the day of the General Assembly. But the fact that we actually went into the communities to speak with them, to engage them, that meant a lot to them. And I mean, moving forward through our plan to revitalize our Youth and Sports Council, we will return to these communities and to engage these young people. Actually, we start this Saturday in Viewfort, where we meet with the youth leaders down there to basically see what the issues are down there and what the NYC can actually do in terms of helping to alleviate that problem. Because, like I said earlier, the strength of the NYC is in our branches, and if we're able to strengthen our branches, it only makes the work of the NYC a lot easier.
Complete. What if you were the minister with responsibility for youth, Anya? What would you do for the nation's young people?
First of all, I would consider restaffing my ministry and make it a ministry that is more inclusive of young people whose ideas will be relevant to the youth the issues that youth face. Not just ideas, not just ideas where persons are going out, but pretty much getting young people who know that their ideas are solution oriented. And for me, I think that targeting social ills will be on the priority list. You cannot expect to improve a young person just by giving them a field to go and play football. We need to look at the holistic development of a young person. We need to think about the social development of a young person. And during the campaign season, I said it a lot, that the discussion is to be shifted from youth development to social development. Because developing a young person, pretty much you would target, you would look at just providing a program for them that they engage in for 2 hours. What about when they go back into the environment that pretty much we can consider is what affecting them, their housing, the psyche, the family, broken family structures. So it needs to be a discussion that is shifted from youth development to social development that could target the holistic development of a child and target their family structure, target their housing situations, target education, every single thing that could make up the human.
Why restaff the Ministry of Youth?
Well, we've not been seeing results from the Ministry of Youth, the results that we so deservingly need to see as young people in St. Lucia. So if the issue may be the staff who is not producing the results, then they need to be a restaffing.
For me, I think that Anya hit the nail on the head, and I do think that the ministry has some top level positions. You have the minister, you have the permanent secretary, the deputy permanent secretary, and the director of youth. One of these people needs to be a young person that falls within the youth age bracket, because the issues that affect young people are constantly evolving. They are constantly evolving. You need fresh ideas in at least one of these positions to ensure that the young persons of the day are actually represented. And for me, again, if I will ask a question as the Minister of Youth, I would ensure that there is not such a big disparity between youth and sports. Sports has basically been the area of focus for government after government after government, and youth development has been left on the back burner. My career is in sports, but I also work in youth development as well. And Trinidad has named the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs. And I think that the way it is going, that we might as well do that in St. Lucia as well. Because if you look at the investments made in sports as opposed to the investments made in youth development, there is basically no contest. And like Anya said, as much as we want to invest in sports, and we should definitely focus on the holistic development of young people. And that is where we can develop proper programming to ensure that as much as we want to build athletes, we want to build our sportsmen and women in St. Lucia, that they are provided with the necessary skills to ensure that they are holistic members or productive members of society. Because out of a population of 100,000 young people, as we want a lot of them to succeed in the field of sports, but is that actually possible to ensure that half or three-quarters of them succeed? They actually have to go back into the communities to contribute. They have to go back into the workplace to contribute. So definitely there needs to be less of a disparity between youth and sports, the investment in youth and sports in St. Lucia.
We've been hearing from the president of the NYC as well as the first vice president. When we come back, we'd love to hear from you. You're watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS Television. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll put a telephone number on the screen right now so that you can call with your questions and comments for my guest. Once again, the president of the NYC, Nias Alfred, and the first vice president of the National Youth Council, Anya Edwin. So we take your calls right now. And Mr. Producer, there's a disturbance. Please take care of it for me, please. Okay, so thank you very much. What is your worst fear as a young person in St. Lucia, if you have any, Mr. Alfred?
I've always had, and that's been something that has plagued me for a very long time, a fear of failure. That is why I refrain from making any single promise that I know that I won't be able to live up to. And my fear continues to be the fear of failure, that we reach out to the young people of St. Lucia and we aren't able to adequately represent them. That is why I've decided, and my team has decided, to be fearless in our approach to represent young people, because we can't afford to fail. We've put it out there, we've spoken to them, they've given us the interest, they've given us what they're concerned about, and we need to do everything possible to ensure that we live up to these expectations. So failure is not an option for us. It is a fear for me, but we don't see it as an option at all.
We have our first call online. Good evening, this is Newsmaker Live, you're there.
Good evening, Tim, and good evening to our two successful individuals. Let me be the first one to congratulate you guys. Like I said to you when you came to Dairy, so I believe your team was going to be successful. I can see the smile, so you probably recognize the voice. And
Thank you.
so well done. But I still have these little misgivings, and like I stated the last time when Rick was taking your guys through the questions, that the National Youth Council, when I served, seemed to be replicated in the current executives, in that we went in and we had all these grand ideas as if we were the ones who were going to do the things for the young people. And it's when you get there, you realize that the NYC does not have the resources. You don't have the staff. Your legs on the ground, which would be your district youth and sports councils, are disorganized. You do not have the ears of the politicians, and that all these wonderful plans that you have would have fallen through. And what I think instead, and I'm not picking on you guys, but since you're in the hot seat, then why not put the fire and then we'll deal with that afterwards. What I think instead should be driving the National Youth Council now is hinged on a statement that you made earlier, that the young people need to understand the power that they have. But I don't even know if you appreciate the power that you hold, knowing that young people are powerful. Because if you did, you guys would be quickly going to these young people to get that power and have them rallying with you. Instead, I hear some wonderful plans, brilliant plans, and if I can help you implement them, I will. But it is the plan that the National Youth Council executive came into office with, not necessarily reflecting the wishes of the young people. I do not know if a young person in Kabwigan understands or even knows what you're talking about when you talk about opening doors, and how you're going to engage them. How will you reach them? It is a brilliant idea, but I would have preferred if a young person in Chic had come up to you and said, we need you to do that for us. And it would have been echoed in Dewash or somewhere else around the country, and then you would have seen that this is the popular cry among youth. So now we are your mouthpieces and we're going to engage our leaders. Let me quickly end by saying, or I don't know if you want to say something, but let me just finish my what I need to say and whatever happens afterwards. I think instead that the National Youth Council now needs a paradigm shift where you become the go-between between the wishes of the young people and the politicians. Forget the politicians, the ministries, the ministers, those with the resources, who have been, they are being paid. You are trying to do a job that there are people who are currently employed to do. You're trying to open doors, but there are people sitting there who are being paid to do it. They go to work or don't go to work, we don't really know. And that is the mandate that they have, to provide jobs, to fix healthcare, to engage youth on the block, to do those things. They're just sitting there, and the National Youth Council, POJAB, With no resources, nothing. You guys have your jobs, you have your personal lives, you're developing now. Obviously, you're intelligent and full of energy, but that alone is not going to surmount as it relates to the magnitude of what young people need. So I would prefer to see an NYC that is funneling what the SSDF, what the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, what the Ministry of Health, what the other agencies, local, international, regional, have, and bringing it into an area where the young people in this country can access. And I would want to see you doing the opposite as well, where you take the wishes, the cries, and say it is a popular cry in the South or in the North or among young people ages 15 to 18 that this is what we need, and I am here engaging you and want to sit with that. You give me the resources I need to do it. Let me help you, or you do it. Let me take you to them. That is what the NYC needs to be. The go-between. I don't think a lot of implementation falls on your back. There are people being paid to do it. Let them do their job. You engage them, bombard them, take them down, do what you have to do, and you will have the backing of the largest demographic in the country with you. But connect with them, and let's do that.
Thank you so much for calling, sir. I'll see you.
Thank you very much, Peters. Of course, like we mentioned a bit earlier, we do understand that we do not have all the solutions, that the solutions in part must come from the young people of St. Lucia. And that is why we have started, or we're going to engage in visiting actually the communities to ensure that we get basically from the young people what they want to see, what their problems are. And we are going to start this Saturday, because the work of the NYC has started already. We are going to start this Saturday with Vieux-Fort North and Vieux-Fort South, engaging these young people. And I agree with Nintas in the fact that the NYC is not supposed to be only an implementing organization. The NYC is always also supposed to be an organization where we bring together the resources and all the technical expertise, and we empower our youth and sports councils in the communities to get these programs and to implement them. So I think that is something that we should focus on moving forward. But I do agree with Nintas that we definitely need to place a lot of attention on the advocacy aspect and reaching out to the powers that be to ensure that they actually do the jobs that they've been paid for.
You have a call. Good evening, Mr. Live.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
I don't normally come alive. You know that.
Yeah, I know that.
I want to tell you, it's such a great thing to sit in the living room and watch those young people. I mean, these are two telegenic young people. Although I wish the young lady would stop looking down and look at the camera. Yeah. And Mr. Nuss, I am very disappointed. That's what you look like. That's how you talk and everything else. And I didn't have the opportunity to interview. Although you're standing, obviously did a useful job. But let me say it more seriously. You guys, I just didn't get to the point of telling both guys last time, well, putting it to them anyway, the consideration whether or not the NYC has not is up to date. Where does the NYC fit in today? Because, like the other caller said, he repeated himself more than once about the guys who are paid to do this and paid to do that. But the situation, I also recognize, is almost an impossible situation. What the NYC ought to have is solid funding. In bigger countries, you get the groups that exist specially to encourage that. Like you guys who are science inclined and whatever, you get public funds. People come together, a bill date, so somebody gets together. What the NYC needs is total independence, and I can't see anything being independent here when you must rely on government for its pittance. You're not necessarily a vote catcher for any bunch of politicians, and so on and so on. I disagreed. What's the young lady's name, Tim?
Her name is Anya Edwin.
Miss Edwin, may I ask you a rude question? Not very rude, not really. May I ask how old you are?
26 years young.
Well, you look a lot younger than 26, and now I wish I didn't. I hadn't asked, but in any event, you look great. Both you guys look really good on Tim's show. Yeah. I know. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
You pull another one on me again. Yeah, I know. Now, the Ministry of Youth. What is the point of a Ministry of Youth? Because the youth can do nothing if they don't have proper housing, if their parents don't have jobs, if they don't have parents who care about them, if their parents are not busy doing a job while somebody else is babysitting, and so on and so on. What has to happen for the youth to be better off is for their parents and the conditions of the country to be a lot better. But what is happening right now, the Ministry of Youth has the excuse, I'm concentrating on youth. Meanwhile, nothing is happening about your parents, nothing is happening about their living conditions, nothing is happening, they don't even know what you think, Ministry of Youth. I mean, how many of you really get a chance to sit down with the staff or the people who matter at any ministry and really spell it out to them? And finally, I got to tell you guys that almost everything you said there, as Tim said so too, has been said many, many times before, and I don't blame you for that because you're obviously smart. You just don't have a pool to dip into, so you keep on repeating everything that has been said before by other people, and it sounds, it's beneath you because you're obviously very intelligent, but you come out sounding like you have no ideas, whereas whatever ideas you might come up with will be totally off the fence as far as reality is concerned, because the things that need to be done for you and what you're trying to do, the kind of assistance you require, is just not there. So that is not a condemnation of you guys. It's a condemnation of how we have allowed things to become in this country of ours. But both you guys look great, really good.
All right, Rick, thank you so much.
And sound good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your point of view?
Thank you very much, Mr. Tawin. For sure, I'll tackle the issue of what the whole point of the Ministry of Youth is in St. Lucia. And I think that the problem that we have is that too many ministries operate in silos, and there is not enough interministerial collaboration because, like Mr. Win said, he's right, where the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports should be working hand in hand with the Ministry of Education on certain programs. They should be working hand in hand with the Ministry of Equity, the Ministry of Health, because a lot of these issues are intertwined, where a student who is probably underneath the guidance of the Ministry of Education falls into the youth age bracket, but we find a lot of duplication between ministries, and that is something that I think needs to be addressed. And the other points were quite solid from Mr. Win, and Mr. Win, I'm hoping that we're able to reschedule on talk in the near future.
Anya?
Very good points made by both of the callers. We did mention earlier that we did reach out to a lot of young people. I mean, we did not reach the entire population, but we did have consultations on what the issues are. And
Hold that point, my apologies. We have a call. Good evening to you. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air. Hello? Hi, good evening to you, caller. All right, go ahead with your contribution.
yes, we did engage in consultations on what the youth issues are and what we think, what the youth themselves think can be done to address the issues. I know that a lot of young people have solutions. We don't have all the answers. And it doesn't stop here for us. Consultation does not stop at the end of the election. We are going to be engaged in consultation throughout our 2-year tenure. And if through implementation we realize that this is not going to work, this cannot work, then of course we are going to seek more ideas, more solutions to the issues. It is not a 7-executive member approach that we intend to take. We had our first executive meeting last night and have already started planning our committees. In fact, we are employing persons to look out for the announcement that is going to be made soon, where we'll be inviting applications for persons to be part of our committees. We are going to form an advisory board as well. And through involvement, constant involvement in the District Youth and Sports Councils, which is pretty much our member base, we are sure, I mean, it has not been something that has happened in the past. So we are going to a person saying, okay, yeah, everybody has been saying this, but nothing has been happening. But what needs to happen is that we need to take a unified approach. We need to have, it needs to be collaborative and not just people like Naya said operating in silos.
My apologies, we have to interrupt again. We have a call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yes, good evening, Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yeah, and your guest.
Good evening.
Okay. Tim, I want to say to your guest tonight, I feel so happy listening to those two young people there, sharing things that needed to be, I want to say to them, just put some grace to the wheel, no matter how it's gonna be, how it has been before. But I want to say to you all, just continue with whatever you all have, the plan that you all have. I pray to God that everything will work successfully if you all continue. I see this young lady as the Minister for Security, as the Minister for Education. I'm telling you all, I already foresee that already, And the young lady, like Rick said earlier on, continue lifting up your face, let the camera see you, let people see you, and don't be so shy.
I'm not shy. It's just that I have so many cameras to look in and all of that.
But I just wish I could meet with both of you all, so that I can share some more with you all, because I feel so proud about it, Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
We continue to take your calls once again. You are watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS Television. My guest, the first Vice President of the NYC, and that's Anya Edwin, and the President of the National Youth Council, Nias Alfred, and they were elected into office last Saturday, and that's during the election of officers of the NYC. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening to your guests.
Good evening to you, ma'am.
I'll begin by saying I have a lot of respect for these two young people. A lot. I listened to them tonight. I've digested what they've said. They're right on the button. They say talk is cheap. But if you'll do exactly what you'll say that you're going to do, and you're going to practice what you'll say, your talk will be very expensive. Trust me. You'll hit it on the button when you all had your opening statement on the politicians. That was right on button. Okay? The social programs, right on button. The youth, and to empower the youth by the social programs and all of that, these things are great. But I want the two of y'all to take it very, very seriously, because I have followed the youth before. I'm not a youth, but I am type of a youth. You know what I'm saying? In the heart, okay? In the mind. But if you're exactly how you all are performing there tonight, and what you all are saying, and the words that come out, and how you all hit everything right on it, for the youth of St. Lucia and St. Lucians, we are going to go very far. I'm hoping you all the luck in life. I want everything to go straight and right for you all, but keep on the right track.
Thank you very much.
And let your words be expensive and not cheap. Now I'm following it up,
Definitely.
Expensive and not cheap. Okay? Talk is cheap, yours is expensive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I leave you with that. Both of you all.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, but I just need to add, though, that we need to, in as much as we're receiving support from persons through Talk Again, we need, when we reach out to people, the public, so that they can just join hands with us. We cannot do it alone. We cannot do it with just the youth. Every single person needs to play their part. Every stakeholder is important in achieving our youth development agenda.
Do you feel that you under pressure now that you're getting all those commitments and people are basically asking you to ensure that you deliver on the promises?
I agree. And one of the things that I've said throughout the campaign, and I'll continue echoing it, is that the young people of St. Lucia need to hold us accountable. They need to keep us on our toes. As much as possible, it's very easy to fall into a period of dormancy and whatnot, but if the young people in St. Lucia are able to hold us accountable, we'll definitely back up that talk.
Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Hi, good night.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Hi, I just want to congratulate the two young people on their victory last weekend.
Thank you.
And
Ms. Dubois.
I just want to say that we are happy for you, and we're rooting for you, and we hope that this is the beginning of new exciting things to come. I just want to say that in everything that you do, NYC, I think, has a lot of power to support. And some of the things that you mentioned may sound like things or initiatives that you're starting new, but you'll need to seek out the little people in the communities who are already kind of doing the little things that you're doing already, and lend your support. You understand?
Definitely.
with manpower and the volunteers and probably just a space to have a meeting or something. And let's start to bind together and let's try to make everybody around us stronger so that the youth is this formidable force once we come together. Because I honestly believe right now is the youth have to support the youth, and we are, and we're going to take our voice and you're going to be heard. So once again, I believe in you guys. Congratulations, guys. And we're rooting for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And I do agree that collaboration is important. Every single stakeholder, like Anya mentioned, is important. And we also we need to reach out to the people who are already doing some of the things that we need to do, because we're not trying to set out there to reinvent the wheel. So collaboration is important.
Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah, good evening to your team.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
And good evening to my young soldiers. I think my hard work paid off. I did foresee your victory, and I would like to congratulate you.
Thank you.
One of the things that caught me in your campaign was continuity. You've got that. Right now, I just want to leave with you. Start grooming, because you've got the right idea. I think you've got the potential. I think you are determined. I think the entire council is determined. And I wish you all the best as a founder member.
Okay, to say your name?
Hillary Saltibus.
Okay, so you're going to join the Alumni Association, right, Mr. Saltibus?
Yeah, Hillary Saltibus. And I want to say to you that it was hard getting there. Make it difficult to get out. And I just want to encourage you to groom the younger ones to replace you. Have a blessed night.
Thank you so much for calling.
Definitely.
Once again, you're watching Newsmaker Live, where we continue to take your calls for my two guests. We have a call on line already. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air. Hello?
Yes, good evening, Tim.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yes, I just want to reach out to those two outstanding young leaders. I want to wish them all the best. Being a former NYC president, I just want to warn them that it's not an easy task. You have a lot of challenges to undertake. I was very impressed with the content of the manifesto and what they ran on. The challenge going forward is finding the finances to support some of these initiatives. I also want to pledge my support. I've done that personally, but I also want to do it publicly. Championing the issues of youth is very, very important. And I really like the fact that they have a focus on education reform. I'm there to support that. So, Mr. Alfred, Ms. Edwin, all the best going forward.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Shallow.
Thank you, Mr. Shallow.
Once again, we continue to take your calls. Don't want to pose any questions to my guests so that we could interrupt them. So let's see if we have another call online. So we await that call for Mr. Alfred and Ms. Edwin right here on the program Newsmaker Live. I think we have that call already online. Hello? Okay, we lost that call. But what are you looking forward to with regard to the future? As a young person in St. Lucia, what does the future look like, Miss Edwin?
Our future needs to be something that is going to amplify our young people's development. It needs to stop being more about talk and what we wish to see, and pretty much more action. It needs to go from rhetoric to action, and that action needs to be something that is going to be developing or support our young people in every single way possible. We need to thrive in our community, we need to thrive in our society, and we need to thrive internationally. And one thing I ran on, in fact my slogan was, be local, think global. We need to get to the point where we realize that we are in competition with the world, and we can thrive, not just in St. Lucia, but we can thrive every single place in the world.
What does the future look like for the typical male, young male or female in St. Lucia?
The typical young male or female in St. Lucia, I'd like to think that over the course of the next 2 years, I need to start building a type of St. Lucia through the powers that we have through the NYC that my kids, when I decide to have them, will grow into. Definitely, I think that there is a lot of potential in our young people, a lot of untapped potential. And I want to see St. Lucia create a space where every single young person can be developed holistically, that we have the access to the resources here, that we don't need to move abroad. for young people to broaden their horizon. So definitely that is the future that I want to see. I need to see a future where young people and the voice of young people is respected.
Okay, let's take in the final comments. Let's start with you, Ms. Edwin.
First of all, Mr. Polio, thank you for giving us that platform to speak on our plans and solution for youth development and to engage our at-home audience in conversation as well. Thanks for all the callers who called to commend us and compliment us on the work that we have started. We are really in this thing for youth development, and again, I'm asking persons to stop standing on the side or at the other end of the fence and calling us out and saying that, okay, yes, you'll have an ambitious plan, but what about financing? If we keep talking about the issues, then we'll never find the solutions. It will never be something that is workable. So again, thanks to everybody who came out again for General Assembly. And St. Lucia, it is our responsibility to target youth development. It's not just a 7-member executive team. It is every single person's responsibility to work towards building, cultivating the good talents and the skills that are inculcated in our young people.
Final comments from you, Mr. President.
Definitely, I want to thank you, Tim, for the platform, and I want to reach out to the young people of St. Lucia and basically invite them to join us, because like Anya said, and I'll keep repeating that, the NYC is the youth of St. Lucia, not just this 7-member executive. And we need to come to a point where the NYC becomes relevant and that our voices can actually be taken seriously. So I implore every single young person to get involved with the NYC, to find us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and to share with us your stories, to engage us. And I do hope that over the course of the next few weeks, few months, that we'll be able to get support from everyone listening. It's not something that we can do alone, and we welcome the assistance of each and every stakeholder. So thank you very much, and we look forward to engaging the young people of St. Lucia over the course of the next 2 years.
Mr. Alfred, thank you so much for being a guest on this evening's Newsmaker Live, as well as Ms. Edwin.
Thank you very much.
And to you, as always, thank you so much for watching the broadcast, and thank you so much for contributing via your calls. If it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live. Time now for the clip that peaked.
But he doesn't need a coach, man. But he's going, we get double funding. Double funding.
Once again, that's the broadcast. Just a very good evening. Please join me tomorrow afternoon between 12:30 and 2 o'clock on Real FM 91.3 North and 91.5 South, and that's for Newspin. Good night, and see you next time.